Hi everyone, it's me. So this week I want to talk about the best British words and slang that I think every foreigner should use. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Alanna and I'm a Canadian who spent the last 4 years in England and now I'm back in Ontario. And because I'm back in Canada, I have found that there are so many British words and phrases and slang that I now use as part of my vocabulary. So I wanted to share those with you guys because I personally think they're fabulous and that every foreigner should use these ones. So without further ado, let's go. So before we get started, there's always further ado because always, that's how it works. My stomach is screaming at me. It's not growling, it is screaming. It is not lunchtime, it's definitely not dinner time, it's not any socially appropriate time to eat, but my stomach is like, now's the time, and I'm like, girl, I'm trying to film. So if you can hear my stomach growling, please just go ahead and ignore it. So the first British word, phrase also I guess, that I now use as a foreigner, although I guess I'm not a foreigner because I'm in Canada. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I say hiya. So when you greet somebody, whether it's a friend or a stranger, you just say hiya. I think it's cute. I love it. I do it all the time now. That's my go-to greeting. And I realize that it really is not a Canadian thing. So here in Canada, and I would say North America, you'll see, hi, hello, good morning, hey, as well. I think hey is way more North American than you would ever hear in the UK. And it doesn't need to be like an aggressive hey, it's like a friendly hey, but anyway. So for any foreigners coming to the UK, I definitely recommend try saying hiya. Try it on, see how it fits. I personally love it, I do it all the time, and now that is my go-to greeting. Another British word that I've picked up as a Canadian is pants. Now, this one's a little bit tricky because I interchange words, which doesn't help anybody. So pants in the UK would be your underwear in Canada. So pants equals underwear, trousers in the UK equals pants in Canada. So we both use pants, but they are for different articles of clothing because why not? Now this gets a little bit confusing even more so because I will interchange using pants sometimes, using underwear other times, using trousers sometimes, and then using pants as trousers for other times. I just pick and choose which one I want to use, and sometimes that makes things quite confusing. I can't help it. I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm just letting you know that's the situation. But I do think pants instead of underwear, I don't know what it is about it, but I like the way it flows, okay? It's just a funny thing, and I like it. Another British phrase this time that I use now as a Canadian is I'm not fussed. So when someone asks you, where do you want to go out to eat? Or what movie do you want to watch? And I might just say, I'm not fussed. In Canada, that's not a phrase that we would say. Instead, we would probably say something like, I don't care, or it doesn't matter to me. But for some reason, like in my head, I don't care sounds quite like negative, like almost passive aggressive, like I don't care. But I'm not fussed, to me, again, this doesn't matter. I mean, anyway. To me, I'm not fussed sounds way more just like go with the flow, you're happy to do whatever, even though I don't care and it doesn't matter to me is really the same. We're saying the same thing, but I just find the connotation is different, where I don't care feels quite negative and I'm not fussed feels more like easygoing. I'm up for anything, whatever you want to do is good for me. And I know that is strictly my opinion, as with this entire YouTube channel, but unfortunately for you, you're stuck listening to my opinions, and that is one of them. Another British slang that I really like is calling somebody numpty. I think it's hilarious. I don't know why, it just really makes me laugh, and I'll typically say yeah numpty rather than like you numpty. Don't know why, I just think it flows nicer. It's a really funny insult. I don't think it's particularly cruel, so it's kind of fun to throw around. And I'll also, instead of saying ya numpty, I might just say ya numpt, which someone actually pointed out in a recent video of mine. I think it was the drinking in quarantine video, possibly, I'm not sure, but I refer to myself as ya numped, and I like doing that. It's funny, it comes out naturally now, and it's definitely not something that you would hear in Canada. Of course, with any of these things, words, phrases, slang, it will depend how British your heritage is in Canada. So if your parents are British and you've moved here, of course you are going to hear more of these things. But for somebody like me whose British heritage is like quite far removed, it's not something that we say in my family or even like amongst neighbors or colleagues, that kind of thing. But definitely ya numped. Go ahead and try it. I love it. Okay. And I'm never wrong. Another British saying or slang, I guess, that I really, really love, and it's kind of related to ya numpty. I love saying I'll nut ya, which basically means like I'm gonna headbutt you. But I don't know where I first heard it, but once I heard it, I was like, yes, this is something that I want to be saying. It's also really fun, if you want to try it, saying it with a very stereotypical accent, which is what I do. That's right. I put on a fake English accent. Did you know that? Now you do. So especially like, I don't know, you get a bit rowdy, you get a bit rough and tumble, and you just throw out, I'll nut ya. I just think it's so funny. As you can see, there's kind of a thread with all of these words and phrases and slang is I tend to pick up the stuff that I genuinely like. And once you say it a couple times, maybe just for fun, maybe because you think it's funny, you kind of continue saying it. So where I started saying I'll nut ya as a joke, it's now something that I will switch to when the time is right. It's funny how that stuff works out. Now, in relation to I'll nut ya, I also like to say nutter, which kind of always sounds dumb in my accent, but nutter as in like, I don't know, you nutter. Or someone does something a bit silly, you call them a nutter. I guess technically it would be like a slang for like a crazy person or someone being ridiculous. Again, I think it's funny. So, yeah. That's the one I use. And now it's like I can't get rid of it. I say it all the time. Now this next one makes me seem like a little bit of a hypocrite, but I defend myself, okay? Hear me out. The word pudding always kind of a little bit indefinitely enraged me. So in North America, pudding is an actual dessert. It is one particular type of dessert. It's like a creamy thing that you just spoon into your mouth. It's just one consistency. It's pudding. You get chocolate pudding, strawberry pudding, vanilla pudding. You might get a pudding cup from your mom who packed your lunch to go to school. You might have a pudding cup. It's a very specific treat. It's called pudding here in North America. Now, in the UK, as many of my British viewers will know, you guys say pudding for everything. And I never understood it until now. So the other day, I was planning out dinner with my mom, and then I said something like, what do you want for pudding? And she was like, what? And I was like, oh my God, I've said it. What do you want for pudding? My mind has been infiltrated, and now pudding is up there. And I don't really want it up there. So now I say pudding as dessert. I don't know why. It's just one of the ones that have stuck. So anytime we're talking about a dessert after dinner, I say, I think I'm gonna have some chips for pudding. That's a funny one because it's a Canadian and a British. Well, we're not even gonna pick that. Never mind. Forget I said that. But maybe I'll be like, I'm gonna have some of that cake for pudding. I think that sounds good. I hate myself for it. I can't take it back. I wonder if I'll ever lose pudding, like the word in my brain. I don't know. But now as a Canadian, I say pudding instead of dessert, and I hate it. Next up is cheers. Of course, I say cheers all the time. I can't stop. Now, cheers in the UK can be used in a variety of situations, which is really exciting. Many people obviously know cheers. You know, you're at a pub, you've got your pint. Cheers to somebody else. Sure. Or maybe you just raise a glass and say cheers. Also sure. But did you know people say cheers as a thank you substitute? So when you're in the UK, you might hear somebody, I don't know, say you hold open a door for somebody and they say, oh, cheers, mate. That wasn't an accent. Forget it. Or you're at a store and somebody helps somebody else and they say cheers as a thank you. So it is used obviously for like a stereotypical cheers in a pub, but also cheers as a thank you. I now say cheers. I say cheers all the time. I guess just especially words are hard. I'm still in quarantine. I don't talk that much in quarantine because I don't have that many people to talk to. And then I do these videos and I can't get the words out because it's like I've forgotten how to talk. I think cheers caught on with me very quickly because I hear it so often. It's one of those ones, at least where I was living in Kent, which is in the southeast of England, I heard cheers all the time. And I really think it's like when you live in a foreign place and you hear the language, what you hear the most is what will stick with you first. That's my uneducated opinion. Nobody asked me for that opinion. I've just given it. This video is full of my opinions. Next up is cheeky. Cheeky is fun to say, and so I say it, and now I can't stop saying it. I actually Googled how to describe it because I couldn't really, I don't know, the words eluded me. Anyway, so cheeky is defined as showing a lack of respect or politeness in a way that is amusing or appealing. So you might say, ooh, that's a bit cheeky. Or you might refer to something like a cheeky pint. That's something that's like indulgent and unplanned. So unplanned, I meant to say unplanned. Let me try this again. So say somebody does something a little bit mischievous or something, or like they did something that's like, ooh, that's a bit cheeky. You're describing them or their action. You can also describe, you know, ooh, I went out for a cheeky pint after work. Describing something that is indulgent and unplanned. So you can kind of use it in both ways. I personally like using cheeky. I think it's funny. Again, I just think it's a really cute, silly word. And now that I've said it, because I think it's funny, I say it quite frequently now as a Canadian. I don't really know what the equivalent of cheeky would be in Canada. I don't know. If there's any North Americans watching, hi, how's it going? Are you getting anything from this video? What would you guys say in substitution of cheeky? So either explaining something about somebody or explaining like a cheeky pint. Again, in Canada, we don't say pint either. Not really. Anyway, life is strange. Another British word that I use now, and I think all foreigners should use, is sorted. Now, sorted took a little bit longer to catch on because it does feel a little bit strange. It's not something that we say in Canada, but in examples like maybe you do something that's really tricky and you say, oh, I'm glad that's sorted. Or you've planned something and your organization and your planning and your activities worked out, and you say, oh, so that's sorted. I just love it. I love it. Have I said that? I love it. So sorted is now a British word that I use. Again, it's just, it feels right. So now that I say it, I just can't stop saying it. But it's used in things like I said, glad that's sorted. We need to get that sorted. Have you sorted out the bills? You know, you can use it in a whole bunch of different variety of sentences, and I use it now. So aren't you glad you know that? Another word that I've started saying is bins. Now, bins, like pants, I will use interchangeably because just cuz, all right? That's just how it is. We have to get used to it. So bins, I would say something like, I need to take the bins out. Did you take the bin out? Are they collecting the bins today? That sort of thing. Whereas in Canada, we typically call them garbage, like garbage cans. That took me a second. Garbage cans, it's a little bit strange because we'll say, can you put the garbage in the garbage? So we call garbage like the item, but we also call the bin the garbage sometimes. So that's a bit strange, but I do find that I will alternate between like taking the garbage out. I will probably say to my mom, but to like a friend in England, I would likely call it the bins, taking out the bins. Can you put that in the bin? I guess it does depend who you're talking to, but I have noticed that I switch between like garbage and bin just whenever I feel like it. Another British word that I will interchange with a Canadian one is holiday. So in the UK, people typically will say holiday. Here in Canada, we will typically say vacation. They mean the same thing. I don't know why the words differ. Sometimes I don't know what to do with my hands. But I have noticed that I will switch between vacation and holiday. Typically, I've been saying holiday more. And I don't know why. Maybe because it's easier to say holiday, vacation, holiday, vacation, 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 holiday, vacation, vacation, holiday. Now on my Discord, I have a chat room for people that support me on Patreon and on Twitch. And I actually went on the chat room and I was like, hey, I need help with this video. I'm kind of stuck. Do you guys know any British words that you've heard me say in videos or live streams or anything like that? Somebody suggested holiday, I'm pretty sure. And I said, oh, that's a good shout. And then I realized that's a good shout is also a good shout for this video. So that's a good shout is a British phrase. I guess you'd say slang. It's a slang phrase, whatever, who cares? Basically when somebody offers a good idea or a suggestion or just anything helpful like that and you would reply with, oh, that's a good shout. So maybe you're trying to make plans with friends and someone says, hey, why don't we go to that Greek restaurant that we love? I haven't been there forever. And you're like, oh, that's a good shout. I don't know if people say that here in Canada. I personally haven't heard it, but maybe it's somewhat new. I don't know. I haven't heard it. So I'm going to go ahead and say people don't say it because we all know that my opinion is law. Anyway. That's a good show is fun to say, and it's caught on now for me, so I say it quite a lot. Now, another British word that I will switch between the British one and the Canadian one is jumper. So this is a jumper, but it is also a sweater. I've noticed that, this is really dumb. I was thinking about this in the shower. Okay, so hear me out. I've noticed that the articles of clothing that I've bought in England, I tend to refer to them as the English, or rather the British word. It's almost like the clothes have their own ethnicity or whatever, their own nationality that I refer to them. Okay, this I think I bought this at New Look, which I got in England, and I will call it a jumper. However, my mom's sweater that I know she bought in Canada, I will call a sweater. Almost because it's like, I know that article of clothing, I know its nationality, and I'm gonna stick to that word. It doesn't make any sense, and that's just... oh boy. Okay, so it wouldn't be an Adventures in Apps video without my battery dying, and then I hit the tripod, and I've tried to set it up as close to how I think it was. If this looks slightly different than the last clip, go ahead and ignore it, because it doesn't matter. So like I was saying, jumper and sweater, I tend to jump between the two phrases, but I will typically call an item of clothing its specific word depending on where I know it came from. So I refer to all my jumpers as jumpers because I know I bought them in England, and for some reason that just feels right. So I'm not asking questions. Another British word that I use a lot now is loads. So this one's kind of strange to explain, but you know that I can explain things wonderfully, so here we go. So typically I will use loads to describe things, so I might say, I've got loads done, or on the flip hand, I've got loads to do. And for some reason, that one has stuck with me. I don't know why. Do we need to know why? No, it doesn't matter. But that's a British word that I use a lot. You know, I've got loads done. For some reason, I can't think of any other examples. If you have an example of loads, leave it in the comments. Leave it in the comment. Leave a comment or leave it in the comments. Anyway, wow, off topic. Or you might say, I went to the store to buy some Easter eggs. That's not relevant anymore. I went to the store to buy chicken and there's loads there. So yeah, you just sort of sprinkle it in when you need it. It's a nice word. I use it all the time now, but it's not something in that you will typically hear Canadians say. So go ahead and try using that in any one of your sentences today. That's your homework. And finally, the last British word that I use all the time now is right. Now, right is a funny one. Right is a little bit strange because, like cheeky, we can use it in two main ways. So the first one that comes to mind is, say you are talking to somebody, or you're at a party, or you're at work in the lunchroom, you know, having your break, and you're like talking with someone, and maybe there's a little bit of a pause, and then you go, right, well, I best be off. I best be off is also British. We're not going to include that one, pretend I didn't say it, but you use right as sort of like a trigger word to show that you are leaving, that whatever was happening here is done now. You say, right, well, I better get back to work, or right, well, that's me done for the day, and off you go home. But you just sort of use it as like a signifier to other people that you're done with that conversation. So I like using right in that way. I mean, I haven't been able to use it too much here in Ontario so far because I've been stuck in my house, but I hope to use it again someday soon. The other way you can use right, which is also really fun that I like to use as well, is when you are describing something. So I was live streaming video games on Twitch. I do it every Sunday, and I was making fun of a video game character, and I happened to say, so-and-so is a right prick. Prick is also a great word to use. I haven't included in the list, but maybe it should be. So you use, you know, you could say so-and-so is a prick, right? Because he was in the video game, he's being ridiculous. But I said so-and-so is a right prick. It just gives the insult, you know, like a little bump up. Like it just sort of raises it up just a little bit more. So anytime that you need a word just to sort of add to that insult, go ahead and add right, because it really works. So another piece of homework. English language is hard. Another piece of homework, try using right in both ways, maybe to describe somebody who's being an idiot, or to signify that you are done with a certain conversation and you'd like to leave. I just think it's a really great word. I use it all the time, and it's not something that you would typically hear in Canada. So those are, I don't know how many those were. I'll count them later, but those were a handful of British phrases and words and slang that I now use as a Canadian, and I think foreigners as a whole, we should adopt these words. I think they're fabulous, they're funny, they're useful, and that's my opinion. If you have any other examples of how to use these words, definitely leave them in the comments. I would be interested to see if we could make maybe not one sentence, but like a couple sentences using all of the words I've mentioned, because they are sort of like everyday words. And it's definitely, at least what I've found, it's easier to pick up the everyday words because you hear them all the time and you have more opportunity to use them. All right, we're educating today. I don't think that's a sentence. I have found though that it does depend typically who I'm speaking to. Even saying who I'm speaking to, that's more of a British sentence. I would typically here in Canada say who I'm talking to. It depends who I'm talking to, who I'm speaking to. Anyway, So here in Canada, I would likely say highway, but in England, I would say motorway. There goes my glasses. In Canada, I would say gas. In England, I would say petrol. In Canada, I would say the attic. In England, I would say the loft. So it really just depends who you're speaking to, what the situation is, how well do you know that person, how comfortable you are with that person. But even still, the words and phrases that I've listed are the ones that I will typically say all the time. So those are the ones that have like burrowed deep in my brain already. So I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys are doing okay. Hope you're washing your hands, drinking enough water, doing what you can do. All right, we'll get through this at some point. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching all my silly videos and leaving very kind comments, thumbs up, subscribing, all that stuff really means a lot. I really appreciate it. And with that, my stomach is still growling, so you know what? I'm gonna eat. And there's nobody who can stop me. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, bye!
That's good.